The stars looked different from this side of the galaxy, Kira Mason thought as she gazed through the viewport of the Alliance vessel. Starbound Earth was just a distant memory. Now a small blue dot lost among countless others, the ship hummed beneath her feet as it traveled through the vastness of space, carrying the first human diplomatic mission to the Zorathi Empire. Kira had been selected as the lead cultural specialist for this historic mission. Her expertise in xenolinguistics made her invaluable, though she sometimes wondered if that was the only reason Admiral Laura Foster had chosen. Her humans were the newcomers to the galactic stage, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. The Zorathi, on the other hand, had been spacefaring for millennia. Their empire spanning hundreds of systems, Commander Nicole Gray approached Kira, her uniform crisp. "Despite the 3-week journey, we will arrive at Zorathi Prime in 6 hours," she said, her voice steady. Despite the tension that had been building among the crew, "Prepare your team for initial contact." Kira nodded, though she felt the familiar flutter of anxiety in her chest. Her team of 5 women had trained for this mission for years, yet nothing could fully prepare them for first contact with a species known for their aloofness and technological superiority. Down in the prep room, Kira found her team already gathered. Dana Miller, the xenobiologist, was reviewing data on Zorathi physiology, her red hair tied back in a practical ponytail, while Maria Vasquez, the diplomatic advisor, paced the floor. Her dark eyes focused on nothing in particular. Tanya Wallace, the security specialist, cleaned her sidearm, though weapons would likely be prohibited once they reached the Zorathi homeworld, and finally Beth Summers, the tech expert, sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by gadgets, ensuring all their translation devices were functioning properly. "Ladies," Kira said, drawing their attention, "this is what we've trained for. The Zorathi have agreed to this meeting because they are curious about us. Humans are still an unknown quantity in this part of the galaxy, and that gives us an advantage." Maria looked up, skepticism clear on her face. "An advantage," she repeated. "The Zorathi have technology. We can barely understand ships that could obliterate our entire fleet without effort, and you think being unknown gives us an advantage?" Kira smiled. "They think we're primitive, and in some ways, we are, but humans have something the Zorathi don't: adaptability, creativity. Even the Alliance species who've known the Zorathi for centuries say they are set in their ways. Rigid adherence to tradition is their strength and their weakness." The ship-wide communication system activated. "Attention all diplomatic personnel, we are approaching Zorathi space. Prepare for deceleration." Commander Gray's voice echoed through the room. The 5 women secured their equipment and made their way to the observation deck. The vast blackness of space gradually gave way to pinpricks of light organized in perfect geometric patterns. The Zorathi defense grid, Kira had read about it, but seeing it in person was breathtaking. Each light represented a defensive satellite capable of destroying ships 10 times the size of the Starbound. A massive Zorathi vessel appeared seemingly out of nowhere, its crystalline structure catching and reflecting starlight in dazzling patterns. It dwarfed the Starbound, making their ship look like a toy in comparison. "Welcome humans," a voice resonated through the ship, speaking perfect English. "Follow our vessel to the docking station. Do not deviate from the assigned path." Commander Gray stood beside Kira, her face impassive, though Kira could see the tension in her shoulders. "This is it," she said quietly. "Make humanity proud." The journey to Zorathi Prime took another 2 hours as they followed the crystalline ship through the complex defense grid. The planet itself was a marvel of engineering, its natural surface almost entirely covered by a single vast city that gleamed with metallic and crystalline structures. The diplomatic team assembled in the airlock, Commander Gray at the front with Kira and her team behind her, all wearing the formal blue uniforms of the Alliance with Earth's insignia prominently displayed. The airlock door slid open, revealing 3 Zorathi waiting in the docking bay. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, their bodies covered in iridescent scales that shifted, colors like oil on water. They had 4 arms and elongated faces with large almond-shaped eyes that blinked vertically rather than horizontally. The center Zorathi stepped forward, its scales shifting to a deep purple. "We are the greeting committee," it said, its voice melodious despite the formal tone. "I am Elder Visla. These are my associates Tex, Moru, and Zila. We welcome you to Zorathi Prime, Commander." Gray stepped forward with practiced precision. I am Commander Nicole Gray of the Earth vessel, Starbound. We come in peace as representatives of humanity and the Alliance. Elder Wisla blinked slowly. We have prepared accommodation suitable for your physiological needs. You will rest, then meet with the High Council tomorrow at first light. Your cultural specialist will join us for preliminary discussions. Now Kira felt all eyes turn to her and she stepped forward, bowing slightly at the waist as their briefings had suggested would be respectful. I am Kira Mason, cultural specialist. I am honored to be invited to preliminary discussions. The Zarathi escorts led the team through gleaming corridors that seemed to shift and change as they walked the walls. Themselves appeared alive with data streams and pulsing light. Kira was separated from the others and followed Elder Wisla to a small chamber with a circular table. Please sit, Elder Wisla said, gesturing to a chair that morphed to accommodate human physiology. The High Council is curious about humans. Your species has achieved space travel remarkably quickly, yet your technology remains primitive by our standards. Kira sat carefully, choosing her words. Humans adapt quickly to new circumstances. We learn from challenges and grow stronger because of them. Elder Wisla made a sound that might have been amusement. Your species' history is filled with conflict, unlike the Zarathi who achieved harmony. 10,000 years ago, we find this fascinating if concerning. They spoke for hours, Kira answering questions about human culture, history, and biology. While carefully asking her own, the Zarathi were forthcoming about some topics but deflected questions about their technology and governance structure. As the meeting concluded, Elder Wisla stood. We have arranged a tour of the Central City tomorrow for your team. It should prove educational. The High Council will meet with you. After Kira was escorted back to the quarters assigned to the human delegation, finding her teammates waiting eagerly for her report. The room was luxurious by human standards, with furniture that adjusted to their bodies and walls that could become transparent, offering breathtaking views of the Zarathi capital. How did it go? Dana asked, as soon as the Zarathi escort left. Interesting, Kira replied. They are curious about us but cautious. There is something they aren't saying, though. I felt it during our entire conversation. A subtext I couldn't quite grasp. What do you mean? Maria asked, her diplomatic training making her sensitive to nuance. Kira shook her head. I don't know exactly. But Elder Wisla kept returning to questions about how humans handle crisis, how we adapt to threats. It felt like they were assessing us for something specific. Tanya, the security specialist, frowned. That's concerning, especially given that we know almost nothing about their military capabilities beyond the obvious technological superiority. Beth, who had been quiet, spoke up. The tech in this room alone is centuries beyond ours, she said. The walls contain computing power greater than our entire ship, and I've detected energy signatures. I can't even classify. Kira looked out at the Zarathi city stretching to the horizon, perfect and orderly yet somehow sterile. Something about this place feels too perfect, she said, almost rehearsed, like we're seeing exactly what they want us to see and nothing more. Commander Gray entered the room, her face grave. We need to be careful, she said. I just received a message from Admiral Foster. The Alliance Council is concerned about some recent Zarathi movements near disputed territories. They want us to gather any intelligence we can while maintaining diplomatic protocols. Kira nodded, understanding the subtext. They were no longer just diplomats but intelligence gatherers, as, well, their mission suddenly more complicated and dangerous as night fell on Zarathi Prime. Kira couldn't sleep, her mind racing with questions about their hosts. What were the Zarathi hiding? And why were they so interested in human adaptability? She watched the perfect geometric patterns of Zarathi ships moving through the night sky and wondered what tomorrow would bring. Morning came quickly on Zarathi Prime, with twin suns rising over the metallic cityscape, bathing everything in golden light. Kira and her team prepared for the day ahead, donning their formal uniforms and checking their translation devices one last time. Tech Moru arrived to escort them, her scales shifting to a welcoming blue as she entered their quarters. The High Council has requested a change of plans. She announced your team will be divided for efficiency. Elder Wisla wishes cultural specialist Mason and xenobiologist Miller to tour the historical archives, while the others will visit our technology center. Commander Gray frowned slightly at this deviation, but nodded her agreement. The team would learn more if they split up, though it also made them more vulnerable. Kira and Dana followed Tech Moru through a series of transport tubes that moved with surprising speed through the city, finally arriving at an enormous structure that seemed to be made entirely of light contained within a crystalline framework. This is the ancestral memory Tech Moru explained 10,000 years of Zorathi history, preserved in its entirety. The interior was breathtaking. Information flowed across surfaces in patterns that somehow conveyed meaning. Beyond mere data, Kira felt overwhelmed by the sensory input. While Dana immediately began taking readings with her devices, Elder Vizsla appeared from within the streams of data, her scales now a deep scholarly purple. Welcome to our past, she said. To Kira, few off-worlders are granted access to the ancestral memory. Kira bowed in respect, were honored by the privilege. What would you like to show us? Follow, Elder Vizsla said. Leading them deeper into the building, we have prepared a historical overview of our species' evolution. They walked through corridors where history literally surrounded them. Images of ancient Zorathi moved across the walls, showing their evolution from water-dwelling creatures to land-based and finally to their current form. The history displayed was meticulous and comprehensive. Yet Kira noticed something odd. There appears to be a gap in your historical record, she said carefully. Approximately 2,000 years ago, there seems to be missing information. Elder Vizsla froze momentarily, her scales flickering red before settling back to purple. You are observant for a human. That period known as the Great Transition is kept in our secured archives. Even many Zorathi do not have access to those records. Dana caught Kira's eye, a silent communication passing between them. Something significant had happened during that Great Transition, something the Zorathi kept hidden even from their own people. Meanwhile, Maria, Tanya, and Beth were led through the Technology Center by Tech Zila, marveling at advancements centuries beyond Earth capabilities. They observed Zorathi engineers manipulating energy fields with their 4 arms, creating technology that seemed almost magical. Tanya maintained a careful awareness of their surroundings, noting security measures and potential escape routes. Her military training never completely dormant even during a diplomatic mission. Beth was practically vibrating with excitement at seeing Zorathi technology up close. This computing system must process information at quantum levels beyond anything we have on Earth, she said, her fingers hovering above a terminal, though careful not to touch without permission. Tech Zila seemed pleased by their interest. Our processing capabilities advanced rapidly during the Great Transition, she said, before suddenly stopping as if she'd revealed something inappropriate. Maria picked up on the slip. What was the Great Transition, she asked. Keeping her tone casual, Tech Zila paused, her scales shifting to a defensive gray, merely a period of technological advancement. Now please follow me to the next section. Back in the ancestral memory, Elder Vizsla showed Kira and Dana Zorathi, art and culture emphasizing their peaceful evolution and harmony. But Kira sensed the narrative was carefully constructed, avoiding certain topics and time periods. Elder Vizsla, we humans value the exchange of knowledge, Dana said diplomatically. Would you be willing to share information about your current scientific research, particularly in biology? The elder regarded Dana with those vertical blinking eyes. Human biology is quite different from Zorathi, she replied. Yet there are surprising similarities in our neural pathways. Would you be interested in seeing our biological research center? Dana smiled enthusiastically. That would be wonderful. Elder Vizsla led them through another series of transport tubes to a massive complex on the outskirts of the city. Unlike the perfect geometry of the rest of Zorathi, this building had a utilitarian design. As they entered, Kira immediately noticed increased security and attention among the Zorathi scientists who stopped to stare at the human visitors. Elder Vizsla guided them through laboratories filled with equipment Dana recognized and many more she didn't in one laboratory. Something caught Kira's attention, a holographic display showing what appeared to be a DNA sequence. Except it wasn't Zorathi DNA, which she'd studied in the briefing materials. And it definitely wasn't human. Elder Vizsla noticed her interest and quickly deactivated the display that is classified research. She said, her scales now a defensive orange, not part of your authorized. Tordana stepped closer to Kira, sensing her tension. What kind of research do you conduct here? She asked, trying to keep the conversation moving. We study many life forms, Elder Vizsla said. Various species from across the galaxy. their strengths and weaknesses. Biological adaptation is a particular interest. Something about her phrasing sent a chill down Kira's spine. The focus on adaptation echoed their earlier conversations about humans, and just beyond the elder, she glimpsed a laboratory where Zorathi scientists worked on something large and writhing. Something, definitely not Zorathi. At the end of the day, the team reunited in their quarters, each sharing what they'd observed during their separate tours. Commander Gray listened carefully, her expression growing more concerned with each report. The Zorathi are hiding something significant. Beth said they restricted access to certain systems and technologies. The security protocols increased dramatically in sections dealing with their quantum communications. Maria nodded when I mentioned the Great Transition. They immediately changed the subject and redirected us to another area. Kira shared her observations about the missing historical period and the strange research she'd glimpsed. "We need to find out what happened during the Great Transition," she concluded. "It seems to be key to understanding the Zorathi." Commander Gray looked troubled. "These inconsistencies align with Alliance intelligence concerns." She said the Zorathi have been positioning ships near systems with primitive developing species for the past decade, claiming scientific interest but allowing no observers. Donna suddenly straightened. Something occurred to her. "Kira, remember that DNA sequence we saw? It wasn't Zorathi or human, but it had elements that reminded me of something." "What?" Kira asked. "It's speculation, but it had markers similar to the Crawl, a species that went extinct about 2,000 years ago according to Alliance records." Commander Gray frowned. "The timeline matches the Great Transition." A chime indicated someone. At their door, Tech Moru entered, her scales a formal gold. "The High Council will see you now," she announced. They were escorted to an enormous chamber with a vaulted ceiling that seemed to contain an actual nebula swirling above them. 5 Zorathi sat on elevated platforms, their scales uniformly silver, denoting their status at the head of the council. Sat a Zorathi larger than any they'd seen before, with 6 arms instead of 4 high. "Counselor Vex will speak for the council," Tech Moru announced. Before retreating to the chamber's perimeter, the large Zorathi regarded them with unblinking eyes. "Humans of Earth, we have observed your kind with great interest. Your species' adaptability is remarkable, unlike any we've encountered in millennia." Commander Gray stepped forward. "Thank you, High Counselor. We come seeking peaceful relations and cultural exchange." High Counselor Vex made a dismissive gesture with one of his 6 hands. "Cultural exchange is a preliminary step. We have greater ambitions for our relationship with humanity. The Council has voted to offer Earth a special position within the Zorathi Empire. Not as subjects, but as partners." Mariah stepped forward. "What would this partnership entail?" "Exactly. Protection, resources, technology." Vex said all that the Zorathi can provide in exchange for human genetic material and test subjects for our adaptation research. The human team exchanged glances, alarm bells ringing. Kira thought of the strange laboratory, the missing historical records, and the extinct Crawl species. Suddenly pieces began falling into place before they could respond. Alarms blared throughout the chamber. Zorathi guards rushed in, surrounding the High Council. Elder Vizsla entered, her scales now a bright warning red. "High Counselor, we have detected an unauthorized transmission from the human vessel to Alliance headquarters. They know about the Arborax project." High Counselor Vex rose to his full impressive height, his scales darkening to a threatening black place. "The humans in containment," he ordered. "They now know too much to be allowed to leave." Commander Gray reached for her communicator as Zorathi guards advanced on the team. Planetary security measures activated, blocking all signals. Kira realized they were trapped millions of miles from home, about to become test subjects in whatever the Arborax project was. "We need to get back to our ship," Dana whispered urgently. Kira watched as the Zorathi closed in, their perfect facade of civilization dropping, a way to reveal something much more predatory. She had wanted first contact to be peaceful, but now survival was their only priority. The Zorathi guards moved with startling speed, surrounding the human delegation, their weapons humming with strange energy. Commander Gray stood protectively in front of her team, her hand still on her now useless communicator. High Counselor Vex gestured to Elder Vizsla. "Secure them in the adaptation chambers," he ordered. "Begin preparations for genetic extraction." Tanya stepped forward, her security training taking over. dropping into a defensive stance. She might be outmatched, but she would not go down. Without resistance, Kira raised her hands in a placating gesture. "High Counselor, there must be a misunderstanding. We came in peace. We have no hostile intentions toward the Zorathivex," made a sound like grinding crystal. "Your intentions are irrelevant. Human your species. Genetic adaptability is what matters. Your kind evolves, rapidly developing resistances and skills that take other species millennia to achieve. This trait will serve the Empire." Maria attempted diplomacy. "The Alliance will notice. If we disappear, this action could lead to war." The High Counselor seemed amused by this threat. "Your primitive alliance is no match for Zorathi power. We have handled far more advanced civilizations." Suddenly the chamber shook violently, the nebula. Like ceiling rippling as something impacted the building outside, alarms blared with increased urgency. Zorathi aide rushed into the chamber, scales pulsing with panic. "High Counselor," she gasped. "Alliance ships have entered the system. They are firing. On our defense grid." "Impossible," Vex snarled. "How could they respond so quickly?" Kira exchanged glances with Beth, who gave her a nearly imperceptible nod. She had managed to send a distress signal despite the communication blackout the tech expert had. Been worth her weight in gold. The momentary distraction gave Tanya the opening she needed with lightning speed. She disabled the nearest guard. Taking his weapon, Commander Gray followed suit, disarming another guard as chaos erupted in the chamber run. Commander Gray shouted, firing the alien weapon at the ceiling, creating a shower of crystalline debris that momentarily confused the Zorathi. The team sprinted for the exit, Tanya covering their retreat. They raced through the corridors of the council. Building Zorathi security in pursuit, Kira led them toward what she hoped was the transport tube station. Beth beside her, frantically working on her portable device. "The central security systems are networked," Beth explained breathlessly between running, steps I might be able to access before she could finish. 4 Zorathi guards appeared ahead, blocking their path. Their scales battle red. Tanya raised her captured weapon, but knew they were outmatched. Suddenly the lights throughout the corridor went out, plunging everything into darkness. A moment later, emergency lighting activated, revealing the Zorathi guards now unconscious on the floor. Standing over them was Tech Moru, her scales a conflicted pattern of colors. "This way," she said urgently before. "The systems reset. We trust her," Dana whispered. "We don't have much choice," Kira replied. They followed Tech Moru into a maintenance tunnel that sloped downward away from the council chambers. "Why are you helping us, Commander?" Gray demanded, keeping her weapon trained on the Zorathi. Tech Moru led them deeper into the tunnel. "Not all Zorathi agree with the High Council," she explained. "Many of us oppose the Arbarax project, but dissent is forbidden. I am part of an underground resistance." The tunnel opened into a larger chamber where several Zorathi weighted their scales, various shades of green and blue. "These are my resistance colleagues," Tech Moru said. "You are not the first species the Council has targeted for adaptation research." "What is the Arbarax project?" Kira asked as they hurried through the chamber tech. Zila stepped forward from the group of resistance members. "The project began 2,000 years ago, during what we call the Great Transition," she explained. "Our scientists discovered a way to incorporate genetic material from other species into Zorathi DNA, enhancing our abilities. We thought the Crawl were extinct," Dana said, making the connection. "They are tech," Zila replied grimly, absorbed by the Zorathi, their adaptive immune system and regenerative capabilities now part of our genetic makeup. The Council has done this to 17 species, always targeting those with unique biological traits. Maria looked horrified. "That's genocide. The Council calls it evolution tech," Moru said, her scales darkening. "Each absorption makes the Zorathi stronger, more adapted to dominate the galaxy, and humans, Commander." Gray said, "Are next on the list." "Precisely, Tech. Zyla confirmed your species adapts naturally faster than any we've encountered. The Council believes incorporating human genetic adaptability would perfect the Zorathi. A distant explosion shook the chamber, dust falling from the ceiling. "The Alliance fleet," Tech Moru said. "They are engaging our defense grid, but they cannot penetrate the planetary shields without the central control codes." "Can you get us to our ship?" Kira asked. "Better tech," Zila replied. We can get you to the shield control center. From there you can lower the defenses, allowing your fleet to extract you, the resistance. Led them through a maze of maintenance tunnels and abandoned corridors, avoiding Zorathi security patrols. Finally arriving at a heavily secured door. This is as far as we can take you, Tekmoru said. Beyond this door is the shield control center. It will be guarded. Beth examined the security panel. Give me 2 minutes, she said, pulling tools from her pocket. While Beth worked on the door, Commander Gray turned to the Zorathi resistance. Why are you risking yourselves to help us? Tekmoru shared a look with her colleagues. The absorption process doesn't just take genetic material, Tech. Zila explained it. Takes everything. Memories, cultural knowledge. The species effectively ceases to exist, replaced by Zorathi wearing their biological advantages. And you oppose this, Dana said. We believe in true cooperation. Tekmoru replied. Not domination. Each species has value in its own right. The Council has forgotten this in their quest for biological perfection. Beth made a triumphant sound as the door slid. Open. Got it? She whispered. Commander Gray nodded to the Zorathi resistance. Thank you. If we survive well, make sure the Alliance knows there are Zorathi who stand for peace inside the shield control center. 3 Zorathi technicians looked up in shock. At the human intruders, Tanya moved quickly, disabling 2 with stunning precision, while Commander Gray handled the third. Beth rushed to the control terminal. This system is complex, she muttered, her fingers flying over the alien interface. Kira joined her at the terminal, pointing to symbols she recognized from the ancestral memory. Try this sequence, she suggested. Following Kira's guidance, Beth navigated the Zorathi system interface, the room humming with energy as they worked. Outside the control center, alarms blared. Security forces would be heading their way. Dana and Maria barricaded the door while Commander Gray and Tanya prepared for defense. I think I've got it, Beth announced. The shield grid should drop in 30 seconds. A massive explosion rocked the facility much closer than the previous one. Commander Gray activated her communicator. Alliance fleet. This is Commander Gray of the Starbound requesting immediate extraction. Through static came a response. Starbound team, this is Captain Shelby of the Alliance vessel Defiant. We've breached Zorathi space with a battle group standby for coordinates. The Zorathi knew their shields were compromised. Kira realized they would be moving quickly to restore them. We need to get to an extraction. Point. Commander Gray relayed coordinates to Captain Shelby as Beth downloaded Zorathi data to her device. An alarm blared from the terminal. They're initiating emergency shield protocols. Beth warned, we have minutes before they're back online. The door to the control center buckled under impact from outside. Tanya and Commander Gray took defensive positions. Maria checked a facility map on the wall. There's a landing platform 2 levels up, she said. It should provide enough space for extraction. They raced from the control center through a service corridor as Zorathi security breached the room behind them. The entire facility now in chaos as Alliance weapons fire penetrated the weakened shields. Reaching the landing platform, they emerged into open air for the first time since arriving. The twin suns now setting, casting long shadows across the Zorathi city. Alliance ships engaged Zorathi defenders in the sky above energy weapons, creating spectacular light shows against the darkening sky. Kira activated her emergency beacon, watching the aerial battle with a mixture of hope and dread. They were exposed on the platform, vulnerable if Zorathi forces found them before extraction. Dana pointed to the sky, an Alliance shuttle braking from the battle heading toward their position. It's coming, she said, relief evident in her voice. The shuttle was still minutes away when the platform door burst open high. Counselor Vex emerged, flanked by elite guards, his 6 arms each holding a weapon. His scales black with rage. You will not escape, humans, he roared. Our species' destiny requires your genetic material. Commander Gray and Tanya positioned themselves protectively in front of the others. Their stolen Zorathi weapons raised the shuttle. Was close now, but not close enough. Vex fired a burst of energy that nearly hit Dana. Tanya returning fire with precision, forcing the Zorathi back momentarily. The shuttle descended rapidly toward the platform, its weapons firing at the Zorathi forces, below creating cover for the human team. Kira could see the Alliance insignia on its hull, hope surging within her. A Zorathi blast caught Commander Gray in the shoulder, spinning her around. Tanya grabbed her, keeping her upright, continuing to provide covering fire. 30 seconds to extraction. Maria shouted over the noise of battle. 3 months after their escape from Zorathi Prime, Kira stood before the Alliance Security Council in the orbital station circling Earth. The gathered representatives from 27 species watched intently as she presented the final analysis of the Zorathi threat. The data tech Beth Summers recovered reveals a pattern spanning 2 millennia. Kira explained, gesturing to the holographic display behind her. 17 species completely absorbed by the Zorathi Empire, their unique biological traits incorporated into Zorathi DNA. The Turani representative, a being of living crystal, chimed softly. This explains the disappearance of the Crawl. We had always assumed their extinction was due to natural disaster. It was a disaster. Dana Miller added, standing beside Kira, but nothing natural about it. The Zorathi selected them for their adaptive immune system, capable of rapidly responding to any pathogen, then systematically harvested their entire species. Admiral Laura Foster nodded grimly. And now they want humans for our adaptability. Our capacity to survive in diverse conditions and learn quickly. Exactly, Kira confirmed. The Zorathi see themselves as the apex species destined to rule the galaxy by incorporating the best traits of all other life form. Images appeared on the display, Zorathi ships positioning near human colony worlds. The Empire had wasted no time beginning their campaign against humanity. After the diplomatic mission failed, Commander Gray, now recovered from her injuries, pointed to the tactical display. Our intelligence suggests they are developing a specialized bioweapon designed to incapacitate humans without killing us. They need live subjects for the absorption process. The council chamber filled with murmurs of concern. The Alliance had never faced a threat like this before. A species that literally consumed others to evolve. Admiral Foster stood addressing the council. The defense of Earth and human colonies is our priority. But make no mistake, the Zorathi won't stop with humanity once they absorb our adaptability. They will be more dangerous to all Alliance species. Captain Shelby of the Defiant stepped forward. The Zorathi have technological superiority, but we have 2 advantages. First, the data specialist Summers recovered gives us insight into their capabilities. Second, we have allies. The meeting continued for hours as strategies were debated and defense plans formulated. When it finally concluded, Kira remained in the chamber, staring at the tactical display showing Zorathi fleet movements. You did well, Admiral Foster said, joining her. Your team brought back intelligence that may save not just humanity but countless other species. Kira nodded, but the victory felt hollow. We lost Tanya, and the Zorathi are still coming. We have no idea how to actually defeat them. Foster placed a hand on Kira's shoulder. Which is why I've approved your request. Kira looked up in surprise. You mean... The Admiral nodded. Captain Shelby has been assigned to lead a special operations team deep into Zorathi space tech. Moru contacted us through resistance channels. They believe there's a way to stop the absorption process permanently. You're being assigned as the team's cultural specialist. Hope flickered in Kira for the first time in months. When do we leave? 2 weeks, Foster replied. We need to prepare the Defiant with every technological advantage we can provide. You'll be behind enemy lines with no backup. 2 weeks later, the Alliance vessel, Defiant, prepared to depart Earth orbit. Its exterior modified with Zorathi technology recovered from captured ships to help it blend in among enemy vessels, and the bridge captain Shelby reviewed final preparations with her crew security officers. Patricia Wong and Elena Rodriguez had replaced the fallen Tanya Wallace, both veterans of Alliance Special Operations. Kira, Dana, Beth, and Maria had all volunteered to return. Despite the dangers, joined by Dr. Valerie Chen, the Alliance's leading expert on xenogenetics, Captain Shelby addressed the assembled crew. This mission has 3 objectives, she said, her voice steady. First, rendezvous with the Zorathi resistance and extract Tech Moru, who has requested asylum. Second, locate and secure data on the absorption process. Third, if possible, sabotage the Zorathi capability to continue genetic absorption. This is a volunteer mission. Shelby continued. We will be operating in Zorathi space for potentially months with limited communication. To Alliance headquarters, the risk is extreme. But the intelligence we gather could save billions of lives across multiple species. The crew stood resolute, their faces showing determination rather than fear. Kira felt pride standing among them. Despite the tragedy that had brought them to this point, the Defiant departed under cloak, its advanced engines pushing it towards Zorathi space at speeds few Alliance vessels could match during the journey. The team trained constantly learning Zorathi language and custom studying the Empire's security protocols and practicing combat in simulated environments. Donna spent hours with Dr. Chen, studying Zorathi biology, searching for weaknesses in their genetically modified physiology. There has to be a vulnerability. Dana insisted, something that happens during the absorption process that we can exploit. Meanwhile, Beth worked with Alliance engineers to adapt Zorathi technology, her understanding of their systems growing daily. I think I can create a virus for their network, she told Kira one evening. It won't shut them down completely, but it could create enough chaos to cover our movements. Maria focused on the diplomatic angle. If we succeed in meeting the resistance, we need to understand their motivation, she explained. Not all Zorathi support the High Council. We need allies inside their society. 3 weeks into their journey, the Defiant intercepted a Zorathi communication beacon. Its encrypted message, apparently routine. Captain Shelby ordered Beth to analyze it. There's something hidden in the transmission, Beth said after hours of work. It's using a frequency pattern similar to what Tech Moru showed us on Zorathi Prime. I think it's from the Resistance. With careful work, Beth extracted coordinates and a time code, a meeting location in a remote system. On the edge of Zorathi space, Captain Shelby adjusted their course, proceeding with extreme caution. The system was officially uninhabited, a red giant star with a handful of barren planets, yet sensors detected energy signatures on the second planet. We go in carefully. The captain ordered minimum crew, full tactical alert. The Defiant entered orbit around the desolate world, sensors scanning for any sign of Zorathi military presence, finding none. They detected a small installation hidden within a crater. Patricia Wong led the away team, including Kira, Dana, and Beth. Their shuttle landing a kilometer from the installation, approaching on foot through the barren landscape. The facility appeared abandoned, dust covering its entrance. But Kira noticed subtle signs of recent activity. Faint footprints in the dust and energy readings too weak to detect from orbit. Inside, they found a small research outpost with Zorathi equipment, much of it outdated. Patricia secured each room methodically until they reached the central chamber where a single Zorathi waited, Tech Moru. Her scales a subdued blue in the dim light rose to greet them. I was uncertain if the Alliance would send help, she said, her voice carrying both relief and exhaustion. Kira stepped forward. We came as soon as we received your message. What happened to the other Resistance members? Many were captured. Tech Moru replied. Some executed publicly as traitors to the Empire, others simply disappeared. Likely taken to adaptation research facilities. The High Council has accelerated their plans since your escape. She activated a holographic display showing Zorathi fleet movements. The Empire has diverted significant resources to the Human Absorption Initiative. High Counselor Vex personally oversees the program. Dana examined the data. How close are they to developing an effective capture protocol for humans? Too close, Tech. Moru replied, her scales rippling with distress. They have already successfully absorbed genetic material from human test subjects. Prisoners? Patricia asked, her voice hardening. Tech Moru lowered her gaze. Colonists from outlying settlements. The Resistance tried to warn them, but the Zorathi strike teams were too efficient. Kira felt sick at the implications. How many? 43. Tech Moru said the process is slow. They are being kept alive in stasis tanks, while their genetic material is harvested and tested for compatibility. Beth, who had been examining the outpost systems, looked up. They must be keeping them at a central research facility. Would the Resistance know where? Tech Moru nodded. The facility orbits a black hole in the Masari system. The gravitational distortion helps accelerate genetic splicing at the quantum level, but that facility is impenetrable. The most heavily guarded location in Zorathi space, aside from the Imperial Palace. Patricia activated her communicator. Captain Shelby, we have confirmation of human captives in the location of the primary research facility. Request permission to proceed with intelligence gathering. Shelby's voice crackled through. Affirmative, Commander. Secure all data from the outpost and prepare for immediate extraction. As Tech Moru gathered research materials, Kira helped her pack. We need to understand everything about the absorption process, she said. Any weakness? Any flaw? The Zorathi Resistance member paused. There is one thing, she said, her voice lowering. The process has become increasingly unstable with each species absorbed. The Zorathi genetic structure is reaching a critical saturation point. Adding human adaptability could trigger catastrophic cellular degradation. You mean it could backfire? Dana asked Tech. Moru nodded high. Counselor Vex is aware of this risk but believes the benefits outweigh the danger. He plans to use a modified version of the process on himself first. If successful, the rest of. The Masari system came into view on the Defiant's main screen. A massive black hole surrounded by swirling stellar debris at its center. The gravitational forces so intense that light itself warped around its edges, orbiting this cosmic monster. Was the Zorathi research station? A massive crystalline structure shaped like a many-pointed star captain. Shelby stood on the bridge, her face illuminated by the eerie light of the black hole. Our modified cloak is holding, she said, but the gravitational distortion will make it increasingly difficult to maintain the closer we get. Kira studied the sensor readings of the facility. It was even more imposing than Tech Moru had described, nearly 20 kilometers across, with multiple docking arms extending outward like the legs of some enormous spider. Dozens of Zorathi vessels patrolled nearby, their energy signatures pulsing with power, according to the intelligence Tech Moru provided. The absorption ceremony begins in 6 hours. Dr. Chen said the High Counselor will be there for the integration of the first human genetic material. The timing has to be perfect. Beth added, the facility will lower specific shield harmonics for exactly 43 seconds during the quantum genetic transfer. Any longer, and the process becomes unstable. Patricia Wong and Elena Rodriguez finalized the tactical plan for the strike team. The Zorathi would be focused on the ceremony, creating a window of opportunity to infiltrate the lower levels where the human prisoners were held. We need a distraction, Captain. Shelby said something to draw attention away from both the ceremony and the prison level. Maria, who had been analyzing Zorathi cultural information, looked up the ceremony itself might provide that opportunity, she said, according to Zorathi tradition. The absorption of a new species is broadcast throughout the Empire. It's a celebration of their evolution. Kira understood what she was suggesting. If we can disrupt the broadcast, make it clear, humans are being harvested against their will, it could cause confusion among the Zorathi population. Beth finished, especially among those already sympathetic to the resistance. Tech Moru nodded from her position at the science station. High Counselor, Vex has been very careful to conceal the true nature of absorption from the general population. They are told the process is voluntary. A sharing of genetic gifts. The plan took shape quickly. A small team would infiltrate the facility using modified Zorathi shuttlecraft recovered from their previous encounter, while the Defiant positioned itself to hack into the broadcast signal. Captain Shelby addressed the strike team. The mission parameters are clear: rescue. The human prisoners gather all data on the absorption process and destroy the research facility. The Defiant will provide extraction once those objectives are complete. Kira, Dana, Beth, and Maria prepared alongside Patricia Wong and Elena Rodriguez, each understanding the stakes of the mission. Dr. Chen would remain aboard the Defiant, coordinating with Tech Moru as they boarded the modified shuttle. Kira felt the weight of responsibility. The lives of 43 humans, and potentially billions more, depended on their success. The shuttle approached the facility using codes Tech Moru had provided, identifying itself as a maintenance vessel. The massive docking arms loomed overhead as they were guided into a secondary bay. Security is lighter than expected, Patricia whispered as they disembarked. They must have diverted personnel to the ceremony. Disguised in Zorathi maintenance uniforms modified to accommodate human physiology. They moved through service corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares. Beth hacked into the internal security system, creating a loop in the surveillance feeds. According to the schematics Tech Moru provided, the human prisoners should be 3 levels down, Elena said. Checking her scanner this way, they descended through the facility, the architecture becoming more utilitarian away from the public areas, the walls humming with energy as they approached the containment level. A security checkpoint blocked their path. 2 Zorathi guards stationed at a sealed door. Patricia and Elena exchanged glances, silently coordinating their approach. The guards never had a chance to raise an alarm as the Alliance officers subdued them with practiced efficiency. Beth immediately went to work on the security panel, bypassing the biometric Locks beyond the door, they found a nightmare rows of transparent chambers lined the walls, each containing a human suspended in glowing fluid monitoring equipment attached to their bodies. Taking constant readings and samples, Dana checked the nearest, pod life signs stable but suppressed. She said her medical scanner detecting faint neural activity. They're in some kind of induced coma. Kira moved between the rows, her heart racing as she counted the chambers. 43, exactly as Tech Moru had reported. Men and women of varying ages, all colonists who had the misfortune of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Can we safely remove them? Dana asked. Examining the fluid, Beth studied the control systems. These pods are designed for transport. She said we should be able to disconnect them and move them to the shuttle. Maria, who had been keeping watch near the entrance, signaled for their attention. The ceremony is starting, she whispered. The central hall is filling with Zorathi officials and the monitors throughout the facility. High Counselor Vex appeared, his 6 arms raised dramatically as he addressed the assembled Zorathi elite. Today marks the beginning of our greatest evolution. He proclaimed. Behind him, a specialized chamber contained what appeared to be distilled genetic material glowing with an unnatural light. Human adaptability will become Zorathi. Strength. Kira activated her communicator. Captain Shelby. The ceremony has begun. They are about to begin the absorption process. Understood, Kira's voice replied. Prepare for Phase 2, Patricia. And Elena began disconnecting the pods containing the human captives, preparing them for transport, while Beth accessed the research database, downloading everything about the absorption process on the main screen. Vex approached the chamber containing the human genetic material. Zorathi scientists attending him with reverence. Soon our species will take another step toward perfection, he said. Donna, who had been examining the research data, looked up with alarm. Kira, she said urgently. The Zorathi genetic structure is already unstable. Tech Moru was right. Adding human adaptability could cause catastrophic mutation. What are you saying? Kira asked. Donna pointed to the data the Zorathi have absorbed. Too many species already. Their DNA is like an overloaded circuit. Adding the human component could trigger uncontrolled mutation, especially in a subject as genetically complex as High Counselor Vex with his 6 arms. And the screen. Vex was entering a specialized chamber designed to infuse him with the human genetic material. The facility shields fluctuating as the process began. Now Captain Shelby ordered. Over the comma board, the defiant Beth Summers activated her virus, sending it through the facility's communication array. The broadcast suddenly changing as the screens throughout the Zorathi Empire no longer showed the ceremony, but instead displayed images of the human prisoners in their chambers, alongside historical footage of other species that had been harvested. The Zorathi guards in the facility reacted with confusion as their own communications turned against them. Many seeing the truth of absorption for the first time. In the ceremonial chamber, Vex screamed as the genetic material was infused into his system, his body contorting as cells began rapidly mutating. The process clearly not proceeding as planned. We need to move now, Patricia shouted as alarms blared throughout the facility. They had minutes at most before security forces regrouped. The team worked rapidly, moving the pods containing the human prisoners toward the loading area. Elena and Patricia creating a defensive perimeter as they progressed through the facilities. Security feeds. They watched chaos spread. High Counselor Vex continuing to mutate his body. Growing unstable, Zorathi scientists fleeing in terror as his form expanded, absorbing everything it touched. The genetic saturation point, Dana said, horror in her voice. His cells are cannibalizing themselves, trying to stabilize. They reached the shuttle bay, loading the pods as quickly as possible. Kira kept watch as Zorathi security forces began to mobilize, some fighting each other as factions formed between those loyal to the High Council and those horrified by the revelations. Captain Shelby, we have the prisoners and the data, Kira reported over the comm, requesting immediate extraction. Kira, the captain responded. Sensors indicate the facility is becoming unstable. High Counselor Vex, mutation is affecting the station's power core. You have 10 minutes before catastrophic failure. The shuttle detached from the station as structural integrity alarms echoed through the facility, the mutation spreading from Vex like a living cancer, consuming Zorathi and technology alike. They fought their way through defensive ships, Many Zarathi vessels now engaged with each other as the Empire began tearing itself apart from within. The Defiant decloaked, providing covering fire as the shuttle approached aboard the Alliance vessel. The team watched through the viewscreen as the research facility collapsed in on itself. The black hole's gravity claiming the wreckage, pulling it inexorably toward oblivion. In the medical bay, Dr. Chen worked alongside Dana to revive the human prisoners, removing them from the stasis pods one by one. Admiral Foster appeared on the main view screen, the Defiant maintaining communication. Despite the interference from the black hole, Captain Shelby, she said, "Your team has succeeded beyond expectations. The Zarathi Empire is in chaos.